Hello, and welcome back to Friday Vinyl Club, where every day feels like a Friday and every record tells a story. I'm Jamie, and this is our Artist Spotlight, the series where we spend time with one artist and dive into their music, the memories, and the moments that came with it. Each episode, a guest joins to share their personal connection, how they discovered the artist, which albums defined life chapters, and which record they'd ultimately submit into the Friday Vinyl Club. Today, I'm rejoined by my boy Ollie. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me again.
It's good to see you again. And today we're going to talk about a really personal artist for us, aren't we? Tom Odell.
Yeah, one of our personal favourites.
And we've got a lot to talk about, let's be fair.
Yeah.
You introduced me to Tom way back around 2013. Can you remember how his music came into your life?
Yeah, so as you've said, it would have been around 2013 when he released his first album. So I'd have been 12, maybe 13 at the time. And I can't quite pin down that specific first moment that I heard his music. But what I do remember is the first two tracks that I'd heard were Grow Old With Me and Another Love. And I remember at the time I was interested in playing the piano and learning songs that I was into. And I think that was the first time that I'd heard someone whose main instrument is the piano be quite powerful. You know, it's piano and vocal primarily. And those songs, as we'll get into later, they're heavy hitters, aren't they?
Absolutely. And I remember this is probably the first time in our papa-son relationship that you'd come to me with music. Previous to that, it was really me brainwashing you with my tastes, which I've been pretty successful with, I think it's fair to say. But I think this was the first time you come to me and said, have a listen to this, see what you think. And I remember there was two artists at the time. There was Ed Sheeran. He'd got that Lego house track. And then you brought Another Love to Me from Tom Odell. And I remember at the time discarding Ed Sheeran as, nothing there for me.
Huh.
He's never going to make it. But Tom Odell felt different. It felt really resonant. There was a connection there. And I could see how connected you were to that song. And that started our journey, really.
Definitely did. I think, as you say, there's so much energy in that first album that Tom put out, which we think is such an amazing debut album when you look at his catalogue.
Absolutely. I mean, you can look at how those tracks performed live now in Tom's shows. They stand up for themselves. I think they've grown better over time. I remember taking you to your first gig of Tom, but I got a ticket for that Leeds gig and at the O2 Academy in 2013. Was it 2014? It was around that time. And there you were with your little leather jacket on and a big smile on your face. I remember we parked up and you were skipping along to the venue. We were up in the balcony that day. Tom came on, he was wearing a nice white shirt. His blonde locks were flowing. The crowd was screaming. What were your memories of that first gig?
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't my first ever gig, as Dad said. I've been raised on his music, so being younger, I'd been to Crowded House and things like that. So I was familiar with going to concerts. But Tom Odell was exciting because obviously it was something I'd discovered, something I'd introduced you to. And I think the main sort of standout from those earlier shows was, even though it's his first album, the energy he gives when he plays live hasn't changed from first show to the last show we've seen. I remember we'd joked, we were some of the only guys in that first venue.
There was a lot of ladies in that venue, weren't there?
But yeah, just blown away by his piano playing and the songs and the energy he puts into them. I think he's one of few artists that we listen to where most of his tracks, for me, are better live because he's just got that energy and there's always something slightly different, be it in the way he plays or the energy in the crowd. So the live shows are always amazing.
That started a bit of a journey for us, didn't it? From being casual listeners to becoming kind of repeat offenders. It started us kind of like a personal journey for us, didn't it, over the years? So like that was 2013 when we first discovered him. We've just recently been to see him. We're now in 2025. He's got into arenas. But let's have a think about some of those early live memories that we have, and maybe we go through them album by album, because they've all been quite pivotal. His second album was Wrong Crowd. That came out in 2016, and that sticks out for one of our biggest family memories, doesn't it? Do you remember the Ferris Bueller Day Out moment that you had at school?
Yeah, so I think it was the album launch was down in Islington in London, and we'd managed to get tickets for that show, and I was in school, or should have been in school that day, but you'd busted me out, and we'd taken a trip down, got to the venue, got there early and queued up, and what had happened when we arrived?
Well, there was a few things, weren't they? They didn't quite go according to plan or as smoothly as we'd like. So yeah, I busted you out of school. We drove down to Islington. On the way down, we realised that the venue was sort of like an overage venue, wasn't it? That you had to be 16 plus, and you weren't quite 16. So I started panicking that we weren't going to get you in.
Yeah.
So we had to do some jiggery-pokery around getting you into the venue from the security perspective. I remember we got in, first thing you did was get a photo book from the merch stand, which is still in your bedroom, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a numbered photo book, which I believe is photos that were taken during the making of the album.
It was, yeah. And we were up in the gallery for that, and it was a wonderful, wonderful show. I remember you you were just in your element, and it's great watching you at shows. I've said this to your mum on the Tonam podcast, that when I go to a show and I'm dragging you to see my music versus we're going to see a show that is actually one of your artists that you like, there's a difference there, and I see that at Tom Odell gigs, and I certainly saw it at that Islington gig. But it was great. I managed to get that book fully signed for you afterwards. His manager was really kind enough to take it backstage and get everybody to sign it. And that tour, that Wrong Crowd tour, we saw them a couple of times again. I think we saw them in Manchester and then in Leeds. And Leeds was the first time you actually met Tom. Do you remember much about how we did Rag and Bone Man dirty? I really want to apologise to Rory via this podcast. Rory, Rag and Bone Man, such a lovely guy. But we were outside the venue, hopefully wanting to bump into Tom to try and get your Wrong Crowd album signed, weren't we? And we were chatting with Rag and Bone Man, who wasn't as famous as he is now at that time. He was a support act.
Yeah, he was the support act.
And then Tom came around the corner at the other end of the building, and we dashed away from Rory, managed to have a quick conversation with Tom, and he was lovely. I had a picture with you, and I think you had a little bit of stars in your eyes at that point, didn't you? It was probably the first time you'd met an artist that you'd found, and it was a really big moment for you. I remember you were beaming from ear to ear.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that I really love, and we both agree on, is Tom is so down to earth whenever we've met him. This first album really did blow up and has continued to. But even after the sold out shows for that tour, he still took time, didn't he, to say hello to people, take pictures and sign things.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. And he was lovely with you. And I'd recounted the fact that I'd taken you down to Islington and pushed you out of school. And he was quietly impressed with my Papa antics. Then we saw him a few more times. Jubilee Road came out. That was around 2018. Again, we saw him in Leeds that time. Does anything stick out from that particular Leeds gig?
Yeah, I think for some of the previous shows, we tended to sit in the balcony where there was one. I don't know if that was just because I was so young.
And you were so little.
Well, I don't think that stopped you at any crowded house gigs. But it definitely felt like a slightly more stripped back performance, maybe. Some of the tracks are a little bit more mellow, whereas the first two albums, there's songs that some people might even call anthems. When some of those songs come on, people are definitely tapping their feet and dancing along. So Jubilee Road definitely felt a little different there.
It was, and I think it was It's a very underrated album, and we'll come to that when we do the track talk. I remember you then going off to university, and Tom's music, a bit like some of the other artists you found over the years, became a bit of a bridge for us while you were away at uni, and when we were sat like empty nesters. And we went into that COVID time as well, didn't we, where we were watching our artists that we liked virtual rather than anything else. Nick Cave did a big show, didn't he, on the internet, which was something we watched. Passenger did an internet show, and I don't think Tom did a particular show, but at that time we were keeping up with him on Instagram, and it was around the Monsters album time. We were watching him from afar. Once COVID was lifted, we did see him in Leeds. Ray Morris was with him.
Yeah, well, I think, as you say, music for us and being able to go to these live shows, it's can at times be a bit of a memory bank. Like during COVID, especially, we had those earlier albums, and obviously we had all the other music we've listened to together. So it's quite nice that we were both able to, whilst apart, we could listen to the same songs or the albums, and it would remind us of those earlier shows. I think when Monsters came out, that definitely felt like a more experimental album, a definite departure from some of his earlier works. And I don't know whether that was COVID or he felt like he wanted to just try something new. But for us, it was definitely interesting hearing a different side of him.
By the time COVID had subsided and we were back to going to gigs, he brought out Best Day of My Life, which was around 2022. I think this was his first one on an independent label. We saw him at Nottingham. We went down for an album launch there.
Yeah, it was a very small album launch. He played a couple of tracks, didn't he?
Yeah, just Tom and piano.
Yeah.
I think you got the set list for that. I think he played about 6 tracks.
And then
he was late. Do you remember? He walked in about 45 minutes late with a coffee in his hand. He's like, "I'm really sorry, guys." But then went on to play an absolute beautiful set for us.
Yeah, and he signed some copies after, right?
He did some signings afterwards. Yeah, I think our copy is signed on that one. And then obviously we went to see him at a couple of other gigs for the Best Day of his life. But that was around your 21st birthday, wasn't it? Me and your mum did a 21 for 21. So we got you 21. It was actually 26 signed vinyls from people in our musicals landscape.
Yeah, signed items, wasn't it? There was some books in there, some vinyls in there. Yeah, it was an amazing gift to receive. Such a ambitious project. I mean, I can't wait to see what you pull out for my 40th. Is it going to be 40 vinyls for 40?
I don't think it is, unfortunately. But I'm looking forward to see how you try and match it for your papa, because that's like something over and above, right? I mean, Tom very kindly signed you 2 things, actually. He signed you a nice photograph of us with our friend Johnny and Susie, and also Johnny got you a signed copy of the Monsters album, didn't he? So that was really, really cool. It was around that time that we had the idea that we wanted to give Tom something back for the kindness that he showed us over the years, and obviously the music that he brought into our papa-son relationship. And we hit upon the idea of a photo book.
Yeah, we did. I think it's an idea that we'd both had for quite a while, and I think you'd thought about it for some of your other favourite artists as well, hadn't you?
Yeah, and it was one that really, it's quite simple. The premise of it was Tom over the years has spent so much time with his fans, having photographs, selfies, if you like, but never actually seeing the final result.
Yeah, I think as an artist, you meet so many people, and obviously a lot of those faces will become familiar. And some artists like to build on those relationships and connections, and I think Tom is one of them. But we'd thought it would be quite nice if, for him and for some of his fans, if people could be a part of that book, didn't we? And submit a photo or a memory.
Yeah, well, it ended up just being photographs and the time and the place that it was taken. So we curated this on behalf of about 100 fans around the world, maybe a couple more, and we'd met so many wonderful people through Tom's music. You know, we call it Tom's family. Yeah, so people got in touch with us from all over the world, and we had some help with some of the fans in Tom's family. Read the Stars Instagram account, Andrea was really pivotal in spreading the word. Our friends Johnny and Susie were helping, getting people involved. We had so many wonderful submissions that curating the book and putting it together became an absolute pleasure for us. And it was ready around the Black Friday album. So Tom had just released details in 2024 of his new album, and he was playing a few shows. We went to the album launch for this. Do you remember at the Wardrobe in Leeds?
Yes, we did.
We did, didn't we? We were down the front there, and we were able to get Tom to play a different song, actually, weren't we, that night? Do you remember?
Yeah.
The burger song.
Yes.
He sang the burger menu for us.
Yeah, I think you'd made a joke, hadn't you? He had it in front of him or nearby. And
yeah, I said, are you going to sing burger menu? In fact, we'll add that into this podcast so you can have a listen. Are you singing the burger menu, Tom?
Yes, I am, yeah. Bacon, lettuce, ketchup and fries, bread and buns and twice the size. Always delicious, vegan too. You can have veggie, meat option food. American cheese or American tomatoes, chili sauce or mayo. Oh dear.
It's a
Sold it.
It's a hit. And we were able to present the book to Tom ahead of the Roundhouse show in Camden, London. Do you remember that trip down?
Yes, I do. And just touching on what you've said, I think it shows the strength of Tom's music, that he has such a strong community, and we've been very fortunate to become really good friends with a lot of the people we've mentioned, or a lot of the people that were in the book, haven't we?
Mm.
But when we got down to that show, as Dad had said, we were very fortunate to be able to hand over the book. We were invited in slightly before the show, weren't we?
Yeah.
When Tom had a break.
So a little bit of sound check, and then he strode over to us. We were a little bit surprised, weren't we? We were thinking it was just going to be Tom, but actually, as this whole army of people came towards us, there was like a big camera. There was his media team, and it was a little bit overwhelming for me. You took it all in your stride.
Yeah, I think in the end there was maybe 4 or 5 people who were stood around us. I don't want people to think hundreds of people came flocking over. But I think over the years, as Dad mentioned in those earlier shows, maybe I was a little bit more starstruck. I think as you've grown to become equal level of fan, it was quite a big moment for us both. And I think you in particular were a little bit starstruck, maybe, that he'd sort of dedicated a little bit of time to come and thank us and receive the book in person, because he, could have just said, here's a postal address, send it over.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he took the time with us. So it was a really special moment for us both.
And he was so nice with us as well. I mean, I think it was the culmination of all the work that we'd put in to get the book ready. And then we'd driven down to London on the day. So there was, we were both probably a little bit tired, and I was certainly feeling emotional. Seeing you with, just casually chatting away to somebody who's just become so big in our musical landscape and our Papa Ollie relationship. And Tom was absolutely lovely. He spent 10, 15 minutes with us, went through the book, looked at some of the pictures. He picked out some of the people. He obviously recognized a lot of the people in there as well, which was so nice to see. And then we raised a little bit of money for his charity as well, the Choose Love charity. I think, what did we get in the end? Was it around 800, 900 pounds?
Yeah, I think it was around there.
Yeah, that was really nice. We went to see Tom a couple of times on that Black Friday tour, although it did coincide with me falling ill. So I think a couple of shows you went to with a friend.
Yeah, there was one show in Manchester that I took one of my friends, Monet.
Mm. And then we fast forward to 2025, and he brings out A Wonderful Life. And again, from a live perspective, we're driving down to London in July to the Battersea London album launch. And that was a beautiful venue, wasn't it? It's full of history. You walk in and, the building itself was absolutely stunning. But then to go into that little stage area was unbelievable, wasn't it? What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I believe it was the Battersea Arts Centre, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that gig was quite nice for us for several reasons. Obviously, the opportunity to see Tom in such a small venue when he's about to do arenas and is really at his peak, especially as we'll probably touch on with TikTok and the billions of streams that some of his songs now have. But it was also really nice to reconnect with some of the fans that I don't think we'd
hadn't seen for
seen
a
in
while.
quite a while.
Yeah.
Especially with, with the things that Dad had just touched on that we had going on. So it was nice to reconnect and see some familiar faces and get to hear some of those tracks.
And we got to hear the tracks before the album was released, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I think we knew one or two songs that had been dropped digitally, but it was an amazing gig, and actually probably one of my favourites for various reasons.
Yeah.
But one of my favourites over the years. And then the last gig we saw him at was the Manchester Co-op Live Arena. So, we've seen Tom in all sorts of tiny little venues, mid-level venues, but this was the first time that we'd seen him in a huge arena. The arena tour, from what we saw of it, was absolutely stunning, wasn't it?
Yeah, just a complete different scale from anything we'd seen before. And we'd managed to get seated tickets for that. And I think going in, you were a little bit disappointed that you weren't stood, because we've always done barrier at shows, with the exception of some of the ones when I was a child. And I think we really enjoy the energy and the atmosphere there. But I quite liked sitting, especially where we were, because he had a backdrop behind the stage, which oftentimes was some sort of visual on. He had dancers who would dance around the crowd, wouldn't they? Sort of like ballroom style.
At the back of the venue. You wouldn't have
venue.
seen them down the front, would you?
No, so I think it was a really good opportunity for us just to get that full experience.
Whereas for me, I was disappointed because, seating at a gig, unless there's a really, really specific reason for it, I always prefer to be down barrier, with our friends, with our Tom family. But from that perspective, it was still an absolutely wonderful experience. We did get our vinyl signed, the Wonderful Life vinyl, didn't we? So, real thanks to Kira, who helped us there. Kira is the photographer of Tom Odell. She has been for a number of years, award-winning, I believe.
Yeah.
We would certainly give her an award. She's absolutely fantastic. She manages to capture Tom, his essence, I think, while he's on stage and he's performing. And it's interesting, his live performances have evolved over the years. From when we first started seeing him, he was very piano-based, and he was very concentrated on the songs themselves. And over time, we've seen him grow out of that into interactions with the audience, moving away from the piano, encouraging the audience to sing along with him. And I say now, seeing him in that arena tour, his channeling is in a Nick Cave. He's down the front on the barrier. He's talking to his fans. He's communicating with his fans in a very different way live now, isn't he?
He definitely is. I think he's always jumped on a piano and really had the energy behind that. But it's definitely been more recently where he'll walk along the front, shake people's hands, really get involved with the crowd. What do you think he could maybe attribute or thank for that? Is there anyone we know maybe who might have helped him there?
I think the person we attribute to Tom getting so successful and evolving is his wingman, isn't it? We've got to talk about his wingman. We've got to talk about John Odell.
John Odell.
So one of our friends, John, he's a face that we saw consistently in the queues, and we started to talk to him and his dad, Papa Ellison. And over the many years now, he's become a real firm family friend, along with his girlfriend Susie and his whole family, really. And John has the unique record of attending over 200 Tom Odell gigs since 2013 to press. And as we record this, he's currently watching Tom play down in Australia. He goes everywhere, and Tom often refers to him as his wingman. And I just want to, maybe take a moment to shout John out. He's very quiet. He's very understated. I think he gets a bit of attention now because Tom's pulled him up on stage once and called out the fact that he goes to so many shows. But he is a wonderful guy, and we're very blessed to have him as a friend, a family friend.
Yeah, and all of them, his whole family and Susie too. I think it's the power of music. You meet people at gigs, and oftentimes those encounters blossom into real friendships, and it's always amazing to see where he is in the world and what he's getting up to. Testament to Tom and his music as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's safe to say they're pretty much friends now, and Tom's said that himself.
Tom said himself, it's an absolute beautiful thing to see. And, we've met so many people, we may not know them as well as we know John and his family now, but, there are so many people in that Tom family that will say hello through this podcast. Right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to deep dive into the album. So we've talked about our Papa Son journey from 2013 to 2025. And over that time, we're not going to include any EPs that Tom's brought out or any other digital releases, although that's a shame because some of the songs that he's dropped outside the vinyls are quite special to us. And we may call out a couple for This Wonderful Life because there's a couple of tracks that certainly Ollie and I really, really enjoy. But let's go back and let's go through it album by album. His first album came out in 2013. This was Long Way Down. What are your first thoughts on this album? Obviously, you've called out two songs that caught your attention when you were 13. What are the tracks that talk to you now?
Yeah, I still think this is an album that has no skips, to be honest. I think the tracks that I recommend, or I think I listen to the most at the moment, are the title track, so Long Way Down, and then also Can't Pretend and I Know.
Yeah. And then for me, I mean, this album, I think, is timeless. I think there are some albums you can listen to and they age, whether it's how they're recorded or the subject matter around what the artist is singing about. But for somebody so young to produce an album like Long Way Down, it just blows me away. Hold Me is one of my favorites. I love that when he sings that live. I really love I Know. I think that is such a powerful broken relationship song.
Yeah.
And of course, Another Love. So Another Love has got 1 billion streams now. Did you think?
I think it's over that now. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe closing in on 2. But definitely off this album, I know that Heal and Another Love really did take off, especially with, social media now. Those were songs that have really gripped, I guess, the younger generation. And it's testament to the album being quite timeless. If it was put out now, it would do just as well.
I think so. And on our album, Heal is the bonus track. So this particular variant of the vinyl has got 3 bonus tracks on. I think it's going to rain today, Storms, and Heal.
Yeah.
And both Heal and Another Love, people are finding these tracks through TikTok now, aren't they? From a perspective, and not just Tom's music, but there's a lot of older music that's finding its way onto TikTok into today's generation, really. What do you think of that?
I think it's amazing if it gives an artist an opportunity to grow and build their audience, then I'm all for it.
Okay, so in 2016, Tom brought out Wrong Crowd. Got the cover art of this is a painting of Tom. It's got Tom's beautiful piercing blue eyes on that front cover. What tracks stood out for you on this one? I think I know what you're going to say.
I think the two tracks for me will probably be the same ones that you would draw out for this, and they are Concrete and Magnetized. We've always loved Magnetized. You particularly love the piano on that song, and Concrete, really love the beat behind that. What about you?
Well, actually, I'm going to differ track-wise. I do like Magnetized. Magnetized was a track that you really, really liked. And when you first started learning the piano, you could play that really, really well. Can you still play it?
Probably, yeah.
I really like Sparrow. Over the years, Sparrow has really, really grown on me. It's such a delicate, beautiful track. But I also like Silhouette. So, that song, I could never get to grips with the lyrics. I remember you used to tell me off a little bit when I was singing the wrong lyrics on that particular one. But yeah, I think the memory of us going down to the album launch in Islington really powerfully cements Wrong Crowd as an album that, that I really enjoy. So let's move on to Jubilee Road 2018. On the front cover of this one, we've got Tom sat at the piano. I think primarily the themes were people who lived around Tom at the time. It's a very underrated album, is this?
Yeah.
I think this is one that maybe gets a little bit lost in his back catalogue. Not to the diehard fans. I know that anybody listening to this who's familiar with it will be screaming China Dolls or Queen of Diamonds at us when we go through this. But are there any tracks that jump out for you all?
Yeah, I think my favourite of this album is definitely Half As Good As You with Alice Merton. I think the two voices on that track and the piano, it's just a really sweet song. What about you?
I like the title track, Jubilee Road. I think it's a beautiful scene setter. And there's a song on here called If You Want to Love Somebody. So John and Susie, who we mentioned earlier, they submitted that particular track into our Instagram at JamieB1973 Friday Vinyl Club and wrote some beautiful words around that. And I think that cemented that track as one of my favorites. The more I listen to it, the more I can resonate with it. But yeah, it's a beautiful album, is Jubilee Road, and I would recommend that our listeners go back and give that particular one a listen. We move on to 2021. This was a little bit of a departure for Tom. It was a little bit experimental with some of the way he was creating the music, some of the instruments that was on Monsters. This is the one that you had signed for your 21st birthday. What jumps out for you on this one?
Yeah, I think as Dad said, it's definitely a darker album with some of the themes, and I don't know if that reflected where Tom felt at the time, felt like he was. But for me, there's a track called By This Time Tomorrow. It's one that I've definitely been listening to more recently. It's just such a soft, very pure song. Him and the piano, and it's quite mellow. Almost the piano's a little bit muted, and it's a really, really lovely track.
And for me, the one that jumps out on here, really due to the live shows, is Fighting Fire with Fire. And when Tom plays it live, it just explodes off the stage. An absolutely beautiful song. But I also like Numb. I think it is a really
Great track.
It's a really powerful piece of writing. We fast forward then into 2022, and Tom, on his first independent release, brought out Best Day of My Life. And just the title track alone, I think we're both going to agree, is possibly one of the best that Tom's ever done. But yeah, we've got a nice pink variant here. Where are you going for this one?
I think, as you've just said, definitely the title track. And I think the second song might be one we both agree on, and that's Flying.
Yeah,
especially live. That track is just so amazing. And I know it's one that's really grabbed you even since the album came out. What is it about that song, do you think?
So I think from my perspective, Flying is just the way that Tom writes, his vulnerability feels real. And when he pours himself into a track, you connect with it, and it resonates And I think Flying is one of those that it's never going to get played on the big radio stations. It's never going to get, be a billion streamer on Spotify or whatever. But Tom, in his quieter moments in the shadows, I think he excels. And I think Flying is a really, really good example of that. Really, really good example.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. And I think it's, as we've said many a time during this episode, he's one of so few artists we listen to that could sit by a piano and give that level of emotion into a track, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. It's rare nowadays. Somebody as authentic. Tom's true to himself. He's he's had ups and downs in his career. He's fought the industry. He's had really bad experiences from what he says in interviews with major record labels, and he's found himself in situations that he's had to really battle through. And it's to his credit and to his testament that he's got through that, and he's found himself in a place now where he's producing some of the best music of his life. And he says things nowadays through his lyrics that people just don't know how to articulate, and I think that's why we all connect with him so well. He's just got such a rare talent for that. So let's move on to 2024. He brought out Black Friday. Wow, what an album this was! The vinyl variant we've got here is the Blood Records Zootrope variant. What songs jump out on here for you?
I think on this album, there's so many amazing tracks. The one that I have chosen, I will be surprised if people haven't already heard it, because rightly so, it did kind of take over the radio and social media for quite a while, and it is Black Friday.
Yeah. And it got nominated for an Ivan Novello Award, as far as I'm aware, that particular track. Stunning. Absolutely stunning. I remember one of the first times we saw that played was on the Graham Norton show, and you have a choir with him, and you had the lights around
I think
him.
he might have done.
And that was incredible. But we were blessed to see that at the Roundhouse in London and a lot of the shows that we've seen. But there are a couple of tracks on here. Spinning jumps out at me. It's like listening to a waltz. I think that's absolutely beautiful. And of course, the end. That song is brilliant. Some of these tracks have kind of mutated into the current live setup. I think about Parties now. When you listen to Parties on the album, it's very different to how he performs it live. Live now, as I mentioned earlier, Tom is channeling his inner Nick Cave, and he's coming down the front of stage and he's communicating with the crowd a lot more. And in Parties, he certainly takes that to another level. And you're the only reason. No, you're the only reason.
You do love that line, don't you?
I do love that line. But that's an absolutely fantastic album. Which brings us now to his current album, his new album, A Wonderful Life. And we got the two variants. We got the Coke Green bottle version, and then we got the alternate cover. The creative design of A Wonderful Life was in conjunction with Tom's creative musical directors, Alex Leggett. And Alex was really kind and helped us, Battersea, to secure a set list. Thank you for that, Alex. But the artwork on these albums is just absolutely stunning. Track-wise, what jumps out at you?
Yeah, well, I think first, as you mentioned, the artwork, it really is a very striking cover, an insert, but it also carries really well to the live shows. There's been a lot of effort and attention put into the staging for these recent tours. And when you see it live and how it correlates to some of the tracks, it is really, really powerful. I think for me, on this album and on the extension to this album, because there's two tracks here, but only one of them features on our vinyl.
Yeah, you're cheating here, aren't you?
The track on the vinyl that I really love is A Wonderful Life. Just the message throughout that motif and his voice with the piano, really, really lovely track. And the other track, which we heard most recently in Manchester, and I was really, really blown away, hadn't particularly listened to it too much before, was When I Close My Eyes, which I think for both of us,
It's so powerful.
it's so powerful. And when he does that show live, he uses his backdrop to show photos of loved ones from fans in the crowd who are no longer with us. And I think that combined with the way he plays that song live, you can just feel the emotion, can't you? And the power in that through the crowd.
I don't know how he manages to get through that song. I mean, for him, how he's described it when we've heard interviews, it's very emotional for him. But watching him sing that song and listening to the lyrics of that song, it just, it's so fragile. It just pulls you in, and yeah, he's on top of his game, right? He's writing some of the best songs that I think he's ever written. A couple of tracks on A Wonderful Life that I like, and I'm going to differ from your choice. Can We Just Go Home Now? Hearing that song on the record was absolutely fantastic, but seeing it live took that song to another level. And the song that I took to my heart the first time I'd heard it down in Battersea, he played one of the album tracks down there. Why Do I Always Want the Things That I Can't Have? Heck of an album title, but a heck of a song. An absolutely beautiful track that I would encourage anybody to go and have a listen to. All right, so we've wandered through the albums. Now we need to submit one of these into the Friday Vinyl Club, and this is going to be quite difficult. I think previously we've done a 3, 2, 1 and see which one we would put into Friday Vinyl Club. I'm going to cheat here, and I think we should do an album each.
Well, I think first, let's do the 3, 2, 1. I think we know we're going to differ on albums here.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to hear.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Wrong
Long
Crowd.
Way Down.
You see.
I'm surprised by your choice. I really did think you'd be A Wonderful Life.
So the reason that I'm submitting Wrong Crowd into the Friday Vinyl Club is more the personal connection between me and you. So for me as a papa, busting you out of school, taking you down to that album launch in Islington, the memories that we've got weaved in, meeting Tom for the first time, means that particular album, has got such from a Papa Ollie relationship. It's just got such a connection to me. That doesn't mean to say that it's the best album from a perspective of songwriting, but for just, being your papa, I'm going to throw in Wrong Crowd. So you've gone for Long Way Down. That surprised me. I thought you'd have gone for one of his most recent albums.
No, I think, as I've said before, there's no skips on that album for me. It was the first album I'd heard of his, the first one I'd introduced you to. And I think when I hear those songs, it takes me back to those gigs we've been to together. And seeing them live, the energy he puts into those songs, it's not changed at all, even as some of those songs have grown to become incredibly popular. It's, always been my favourite of his albums.
Wow. So, Ollie, if we were going to recommend a new listener to Tom's music, where would you start?
I think, again, I would start with the first album. I think it's won the awards and the acclaim it has because of how good it is. And I think there's some really accessible tracks on there that I would recommend anyone to listen to.
Okay. And if on the off chance, Tom found this podcast and gave it a listen, is there any message that you want to pass to him?
I think it's just a thank you for the time and the kindness he's given us whenever we've met him. Thank you for everyone you've introduced us to and the friends we've been able to make at the gigs. And what would your message be?
I would say to Tom, thank you so much for being part of our musical journey as Papa and Ollie. You've given us so much, so many memories. As Ollie said, you've introduced us to so many friends. The Tom family is absolute universal in their love for you. And of course, Tom, if you want to come on to Friday Vinyl Club and have a chat with us, we'd love to have you on at any point in time. Please feel free. Yeah. So you never know.
Yeah.
One day I'm
Maybe.
manifesting, absolutely manifesting. Okay. Ollie, thank you so much for shining a light on Tom Odell's work. It's once again been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. I'm always amazed at how music becomes part of our lives, not just through the sound, but through the memories that it holds. Listeners, you can find today's featured albums and tracks on our companion Spotify playlist. You can reach out to us at any point in time. We're on Instagram at JamieB1973, or you can email us at thefridayvinylclub@hotmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please do share with a friend, follow, or leave a comment. It helps us grow. And until next time, keep your records spinning and your stories alive. This has been a Friday Vinyl Club Artist Spotlight on Tom Odell, where every day feels like Friday and every album tells a story. Keep listening. We'll see you next time. See ya. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.